The mountain rumbled for weeks. Steam rose higher each day. Everything below stood exposed. The morning light drifts over the Pacific Northwest. Mist hangs in thin ribbons between the trees. Birdsong echoes through the valley, soft and pure. It is May 1980, and Mount St. Helens stands still against the sky. Snow glows on its peak, sharp and white under the rising sun. The forest below seems endless. Pines whisper with the wind. The air smells of rain and cedar. People have lived around the mountain for generations. To them, it is not just a landmark, it is part of their lives. Farmers tend to their fields at the foothills. Loggers start their chainsaws in the cool dawn. Rivers carry the sounds of engines and laughter. The world feels simple, steady, eternal. Children ride the school bus down gravel roads lined with fir trees. At the local diner, coffee cups clink and voices rise in friendly talk. Tourists stop by the roadside to take photos of the white volcano shining through clouds. It looks peaceful. It looks permanent. No one imagines what sleeps beneath it. A ranger drives through the Gifford Pinchot forest. He watches the plume of smoke rising from the logging camps. The air feels alive. Animals move early this year, he thinks, but nothing seems wrong. He turns up the radio and hums with the news. In a small cabin near Spirit Lake, a man named Harry Truman feeds his cats. He has lived here since the 40s. He loves the lake, the sound of the wind against his porch, and the mountain watching over him. Reporters have come to ask if he will leave. He laughs and says no. He has seen this mountain every day of his life. It will never harm him. Farther down the valley, families are planting gardens. They talk about summer, fishing, and the long days ahead. Some mention small tremors that rattled windows last month. Others shrug it off. Earthquakes are common here. The ground has always moved. They trust the land too much to fear it. At night, the mountain glows faintly under the stars. The wind shifts, carrying a smell of earth and stone. Owls call through the dark forest. The people sleep soundly. No one hears the faint groan deep within the volcano. In the city of Vancouver, scientists at the observatory sort through seismic readings. The paper rolls show tiny spikes of movement. They circle the data and note the pattern. Something is stirring, but not enough to alarm the public. They prepare another field trip, another set of instruments. The mountain has been quiet for more than a century. It is hard to imagine it waking. Days pass. The snow begins to melt along the slopes. Streams swell with icy water. Elk move down toward the valleys. Everything looks normal, yet somehow charged, like the air before a storm. The people near Mount St. Helens carry on with their routines. Life is full, ordinary, and beautiful. In small moments, nature whispers warnings that few notice. A hawk flies low and silent over the ash-gray soil. Steam curls from cracks hidden beneath the snow. The land breathes, slow and deep. No one is listening. The mountain stands alone under the open sky. It has watched centuries of rain and fire, silence and bloom. It remembers what humans forget, that every calm is temporary, that even beauty can break. The volcano waits in patience, gathering its breath. Soon it will speak again, and the world around it will never be the same.
Morning comes with the scent of pine and wet soil. The valley stirs to life beneath soft sunlight. Farm trucks rumble down dirt roads, leaving trails of golden dust. Children chase each other before school, their laughter mixing with the sound of saws in the distance. For the people who live here, Mount St. Helens is part of the background. It is a familiar friend, white and calm, like a guardian standing watch. In the small town of Cougar, the diner opens early. Coffee brews strong and dark. The radio hums with local news. A group of loggers sit together, talking about their shifts on the North Slope. They joke about the scientists who keep visiting with clipboards and cameras. One of them says the ground shook again last night. Another laughs and says the old mountain is just stretching its legs. Life continues in rhythm. Teenagers drive to the lake with music loud in their trucks. Fishermen prepare their boats and nets. Tourists from Portland arrive with cameras, hoping to see the mountain up close. The air feels alive with spring, full of energy and promise. No one senses the danger building beneath. At Spirit Lake Lodge, guests sip coffee on the deck. They talk about how beautiful the view is this year. The snow line has begun to melt, revealing streaks of rock and forest. Some notice a faint haze near the summit, but think it is only a passing cloud. The lake below reflects the volcano perfectly, as if it were frozen in time. Down in the meadows, elk graze near streams swollen with meltwater. Birds circle in patterns over the trees. The land looks peaceful, but even the animals are restless. Dogs bark at night without reason. Deer move away from their usual paths. Nature feels unsettled, though few humans sense it. A farmer named Carl drives his tractor near Toutle River. He pauses to watch a puff of white rise from the mountain. It fades in the wind, harmless and small. He wipes sweat from his brow and keeps working. There is always more to do before rain comes again. In town, a school teacher writes the date on the blackboard, May 14th, 1980. She tells her students to finish their drawings of the volcano. They color the slopes in white and green. Some add smoke for fun. They laugh, and she smiles, unaware of how close that image is to what will soon happen. Farther away, reporters film interviews with geologists. They discuss pressure, steam, and the chance of an eruption. Most experts say the mountain is restless but stable. No one predicts what is about to come. The cameras pack up, and people go home. The story will fade from the evening news for now. At sunset, the mountain glows pink and gold. Fishermen return from the lake with nets full of trout. Families gather for dinner. The windows shine with warm light. The sky deepens to purple, and the first stars appear. It feels like any other evening, calm and complete. In the dark, small tremors ripple under the ground. Dogs bark again. A few people awake, thinking they heard thunder. Then silence. The night settles over the valley like a soft blanket. Steam curls quietly from the crater, invisible in the dark. Mount St. Helens sleeps, or seems to. Its slopes hide rivers of heat and rock deep within. For now the people rest in peace, held by the illusion of safety. They cannot see how close they are to history. In a few days, the quiet life they know will vanish in a single heartbeat.
The first warning signs appear quietly. A faint rumble beneath the ground, a light tremor felt through the forest floor. On March 20, a small earthquake shakes the mountain awake. It lasts only a few seconds, but the sound echoes through the valleys like a growl from deep inside the earth. Scientists at the U.S. Geological Survey take notice. Seismographs record a pattern of quakes, shallow and sharp. They drive north toward the mountain, setting up instruments and cameras. Each day brings more movement, more signals that something is shifting. The ground near the summit cracks open, releasing thin threads of steam. The volcano is stirring, though no one yet knows how much power it hides. Reporters arrive, eager for a story. Helicopters circle the peak, cameras trained on the new vent forming near the top. News anchors call it a beautiful event, a harmless show of nature. Locals gather to watch from the roadsides. They take pictures and wave at the news crews. The mountain looks magnificent under the morning sun, alive and mysterious. By early April, the earthquakes grow stronger. Residents near Spirit Lake feel their houses shake. Windows rattle, dishes fall, and animals bolt into the woods. Scientists measure a bulge forming on the north side of the volcano. It is rising fast, swelling outward by several feet each day. Pressure is building inside, but no one knows when or how it will release. The governor declares a danger zone. Officials mark red lines on maps, closing roads and campgrounds. Rangers post warning signs along the trails. But some people refuse to leave. They have homes, businesses, and memories tied to this place. They tell the reporters they will stay until they see real danger. Harry Truman at Spirit Lake becomes a local legend. He tells the press that the mountain will not hurt him. He sits on his porch, watching the plume of steam rise higher each day. His cats sleep at his feet. He says, "If the mountain goes, I go with it." The story spreads across the nation, and people admire his courage or question his stubbornness. Through April and early May, the pattern continues. Dozens of small explosions send ash and rock into the air. The top of the mountain looks different now, cracked and uneven. Snowmelt turns gray with ash. The rivers run colder and thicker. Still, the mountain holds its silence between bursts, as if waiting for the right moment. Scientists give daily briefings. They speak in careful tones, using words like instability, pressure, and magma dome. They know something enormous is coming, but they cannot say when. They work through sleepless nights, checking readings and watching the bulge grow. Every sign points to danger, yet people still drive to look at it, fascinated by what they do not understand. On May 17th, a quiet Saturday, the sky clears after weeks of rain. Families drive up to take pictures before authorities close the roads again. The air smells sharp, metallic, like lightning before a storm. Photographers stand on ridges, adjusting their lenses. They talk about the light, about how perfect the mountain looks against the blue sky. They do not realize they are looking at a ticking clock made of stone. That night, the stars return over Washington state. The volcano glows faintly under moonlight. Steam rises from the crater in steady breaths. A few final earthquakes shake the valley, too small to wake most people. Then silence falls again. The mountain stands perfectly still, gathering everything it has left. In less than 12 hours, it will break that silence forever. The early warnings are over. The waiting is done. The mountain is ready to speak. Sunday morning arrives with clear skies and sunlight over the forest. The mountain looks calm, almost gentle. Birds circle above the crater. The air smells fresh, washed by spring rain. To most people, it feels like the danger has passed. A thin layer of mist lingers over Spirit Lake. Harry Truman feeds his cats and watches the water ripple. He hears a low hum from far away, but thinks it is only wind in the trees. He pours another cup of coffee and sits down on his porch. The mountain stands bright and white before him, peaceful as always. Down the valley, campers pack their gear after a quiet night. They plan to leave by noon. The sun warms the ash on the ground, and tiny clouds rise from it like steam. Fishermen cast their lines into the river. The water runs gray but steady. The forest seems alive, unaware of the danger buried beneath its roots. At the observatory, scientists read new data from the instruments. The bulge on the north slope is now more than 100 meters high. It grows every day, pushing outward like a balloon. They know the mountain cannot hold that pressure forever. They call the local sheriff and urge another evacuation. He agrees, but the roads are quiet this early on Sunday. No one expects disaster on a clear morning. At 8 a.m., a pilot named Gary Rosenquist flies his small plane near the volcano. He circles above the ridge, taking photographs. The crater glows faintly in the sunlight, steam rising in thin streams. He feels a vibration through the plane's body, but thinks nothing of it. He turns north, heading home, unaware that his photos will soon capture history's last moments of calm. The valleys are full of life. A deer drinks at a creek near the base of the slope. An eagle rides the wind above the forest canopy. Children in towns miles away play in backyards, laughing in the morning air. Everything feels ordinary, yet time is running out. The mountain waits, silent and still, building toward something unstoppable. At 8 a.m., the sun climbs higher. The air warms quickly, carrying the smell of sap and soil. Steam thickens near the crater rim. Tiny earthquakes shake the ground, so small that only seismographs can feel them. A few scientists in the field notice fresh cracks forming near the base of the bulge. They exchange uneasy glances. Something deep inside the volcano is shifting. But no one imagines how fast it will happen. They expect another small explosion, not what is about to come. At 8:25 a.m., the mountain stands perfectly still again. The wind dies. Birdsong fades. The world holds its breath. Minutes pass like hours. In the towns below, people go about their routines. Breakfast plates clatter. Cars start in driveways. Radios hum with songs and news. Life continues, unaware that the ground beneath them is seconds away from changing forever. At 8:31 a.m., the first sign comes, a deep cracking sound like thunder underground. Animals panic, running from the woods. Dogs bark wildly in every town around the mountain. Steam bursts from the summit in a sudden flash of white. For one brief moment, the volcano shines brilliantly against the blue sky. Then it begins to collapse. Inside the mountain, rock and magma rip apart. The north slope slides downward, releasing all the trapped pressure at once. The calm is over. The storm has begun. In that final second of silence, before the blast, everything feels frozen in time. The mountain holds its last breath. The people near it live their last ordinary moment. The wind is still. The sky is clear. The earth is waiting to roar. At 8:32 a.m. on May 18, 1980, the mountain explodes. The north slope collapses in a massive landslide. An entire side of Mount St. Helens gives way, releasing pressure built for months. In a single instant, the calm is shattered. The earth shakes like thunder breaking from underground. A roar fills the valley, louder than anything nature has ever made here. Trees bend and snap like matchsticks. The mountain tears itself apart, sending rock, gas, and ash into the sky. The sound races across the land faster than wind. People miles away feel it in their bones. Windows shatter in towns 50 miles from the crater. A wave of rock and ash rushes outward at more than 300 miles per hour. It moves faster than sound, faster than thought. Forests vanish in seconds. Valleys turn black. The air becomes a wall of fire and dust. Harry Truman sits on his porch at Spirit Lake as the sky darkens. He has no time to move. The blast reaches him within moments. The cabin, the trees, and the man who loved the mountain disappear into a storm of ash. The lake rises and turns into boiling mud. In an instant, the quiet world he knew is gone. At the same moment, campers near the river feel the air turn hot. They hear a sound like a freight train. They run, but the blast moves faster than any human can. The pressure wave flattens everything. Cars are thrown into the air like leaves. The sky turns black, and the sun disappears behind a wall of smoke. Photographer Gary Rosenquist watches for miles away. He sees the mountain's sides slide off and the sky erupt. He grabs his camera and shoots frame after frame, his hands shaking. Each click captures a piece of history frozen between fear and awe. He does not yet know he is recording one of the most powerful natural events ever witnessed on American soil. The ash cloud rises 15 miles into the sky. Lightning flashes inside it, white against black smoke. Thunder rolls across Washington and Oregon. Airplanes hundreds of miles away fly blind through the ash. The day turns to night. Rain and stone fall together. Animals flee through the burning forest. Birds vanish in the smoke. Elk and deer run until the ash fills their lungs. The blast zone stretches for miles in every direction. Nothing moves except fire and wind. In nearby towns, people stare in disbelief. The horizon glows red. Ash begins to fall like snow. Cars stall. Breathing becomes hard. Parents pull their children indoors and seal the windows. The radio crackles with confusion. Reporters describe the eruption as a disaster beyond imagination. At the observatory, scientists can barely see their instruments. Electricity fails. They can only listen to the rumble and feel the floor shake beneath their feet. No one speaks for long minutes. There is nothing to say. The mountain is rewriting the landscape. For more than 9 hours, the eruption continues. Pyroclastic flows carve deep scars into the earth. Rivers boil and overflow. Mudslides race down the valleys, carrying trees, rocks, and buildings with them. The Tuttle River becomes a gray torrent, choked with debris. Bridges collapse under the weight. The sky glows orange through the darkness. By afternoon, the main blast begins to fade. The mountain that once stood proud has lost more than 1,000 feet of height. Its summit is gone, replaced by a vast crater, open and smoking. Ash covers 11 states. The landscape looks like another planet. When the roar finally dies, a silence heavier than sound follows. It is the silence of destruction, of everything burned and buried. Where forests once stood, only stumps remain. Where lakes once shimmered, there are fields of gray. The air smells of sulfur and death. The eruption of Mount St. Helens has ended. But for those who survived, the true test is only beginning.
The blast fades, but the world it leaves behind is unrecognizable. Ash falls in heavy waves. The air glows gray and orange. A strange quiet spreads, broken only by the distant crash of trees. Somewhere near the Toutle River, a man named Jerry Sanders wakes inside his truck. He cannot see. The windows are covered in ash. The air is thick, like breathing dust. He reaches for the door handle and steps outside. Silence surrounds him, except for the hiss of falling debris. The sun has vanished behind a ceiling of smoke. He ties a wet shirt over his mouth and starts walking. Every step sinks into inches of ash, soft and hot. He calls for his friends, but his voice dies in the heavy air. Only the echo of his own breath answers.
Somewhere nearby, a stream still runs beneath the gray surface. He follows the faint sound of water, hoping it leads away from the mountain. In another valley, a photographer named Keith hears the blast echo. He was taking landscape shots when the eruption began. Now his camera is buried under ash, and the sky is dark as night. He crawls beneath a fallen tree, using it as shelter. Ash piles around him like snow. He can feel the heat from the ground seeping through his jacket. He wonders if anyone knows he is still alive. Across the blast zone, people trapped in cars and cabins fight for air. They wrap shirts over their faces, trying to filter the dust. Some stay inside, afraid to move. Others start walking, searching for open sky. The forest is gone. The landmarks are gone. Even the direction of the sun is lost. At Spirit Lake, the water has turned to mud and steam. Fallen trees float like matchsticks, tangled and blackened. Beneath the surface, bubbles of heat rise and burst. A single cabin roof drifts across the boiling water. The silence there feels final. In the nearest towns, people watch the sky with disbelief. Ash drifts down in slow motion, coating cars, houses, and fields. Daylight fades to twilight, even at noon. Streetlights flicker on, and the world turns a strange color between silver and brown. Airplanes are grounded. Engines choke and fail. Across Washington, people stay inside, listening to the radio for updates that never come. A rescue helicopter from the National Guard lifts off from Portland. The pilots fly toward the mountain, guided only by instruments. They can barely see through the smoke. When they break through the edge of the ash cloud, the world below looks unreal. Forests are gone. Rivers are black. The shape of the land itself has changed. They circle low, searching for signs of life. Through the haze, they spot movement near the Toutle River. A man waves his arms, covered head to toe in ash. They land on a small patch of flat ground and pull him aboard. His face is burned, his clothes torn. He whispers, "Thank you," and points toward the woods. "There are others," he says. "They are still out there." The helicopter rises again, turning toward the next valley. For hours they search and find only silence. Occasionally, a flash of color appears in the gray, a jacket, a tent, a car roof. Sometimes there is movement, sometimes not. By nightfall, the rescuers return with a handful of survivors. Doctors wait at the base camp with oxygen and blankets. No one speaks much. Every face tells its own story of fire and ash. In the darkness, the volcano still glows faintly. Lightning flashes through the drifting smoke. The survivors look toward it, too tired to feel anger or fear. They are alive, and that is enough for now. In the silence that follows disaster, human instinct becomes clear. To breathe, to move, to help, to endure. The mountain sleeps again, but the people who lived through its fury will never see it the same way. The survivors carry the memory of that morning, the sound, the heat, and the moment the world turned to ash.
Morning light tries to break through the smoke, but the sky stays gray. Helicopters rise from the National Guard base in waves. Their rotors cut through the thick air, searching for survivors. Each flight feels like a gamble between danger and hope. The pilots wear masks against the ash. Visibility is almost zero. They navigate by instinct, following the faint lines of rivers and valleys. Below them, the world looks like the surface of another planet. Everything is gray, flattened, and lifeless. In the first valley, they spot movement.
3 people wave from the roof of a half-buried cabin. The team lowers ropes, pulling them up one by one. Their faces are pale, their hair streaked with dust. They cling to the rescuers without speaking. The only sound is the engine and the beating of hearts. Back at the base camp, doctors and volunteers prepare for the injured. Tents flap in the wind. Cots line the ground, covered with blankets and oxygen tanks. The smell of antiseptic mixes with ash and smoke. Nurses wipe faces clean, wash burns, and wrap shaking hands in gauze. Every rescued person tells a new story of survival and loss. One man says he dug himself out of the mud with a branch. A woman says she followed a stream for miles in darkness. A teenage boy describes how he hid in a culvert while trees burned above him. Each story is almost impossible to believe, yet they are all true. Reporters arrive, cameras coated in ash. They film quietly, their voices subdued. The eruption has turned every witness into part of the story. No one looks for headlines now. They look for faces, for signs of life in the devastation. In towns miles away, people open their homes to strangers. Schools become shelters. Volunteers drive trucks full of food and clean water. Every road is covered in gray dust, but still they come. Across Washington and Oregon, compassion moves faster than fear. A group of rescuers treks on foot into the blast zone. They carry stretchers and radios, wrapped in plastic against the ash. The ground crunches beneath their boots. The air burns their throats. They find a pickup truck overturned near a fallen bridge. Inside, a man is still breathing. He whispers, "Help me," and they lift him gently. Every rescue feels like a miracle. At night, the base camp glows with lanterns. Helicopters return, blades shining with ash. Medics unload survivors who can barely stand. Someone brings hot soup and bread. For a few quiet minutes, the camp feels almost peaceful. Voices murmur low, as if afraid to disturb the dead who still lie out there in the dark. A rescue dog barks suddenly, catching a faint scent. The team follows it to a hollow beneath fallen trees. They find 2 more people, weak but alive. One of the rescuers smiles for the first time all day. He says softly, "We found them." In that moment, every drop of exhaustion disappears. The work continues through the night and into the next day. The ash never stops falling. Hands blister, eyes sting, lungs ache, but no one quits. Every person out there, from pilots to medics to volunteers, carries the same thought. If we stop searching, someone might die alone. By the 3rd day, more than 100 survivors have been rescued. Some smile through tears. Some sit in silence, staring at the mountain through the haze. They have lost everything, yet they are alive. And that small truth becomes a reason to keep going. As dusk falls again, the helicopters rest on the runway, their blades still. The air is cool now. The fires are dying. The mountain glows faintly under the fading light. It seems calmer, as if watching the people below rebuild their hope. In the middle of destruction, compassion has become the only thing untouched by ash. Days pass, and the fires begin to fade. The wind changes direction, clearing the air enough to reveal what remains. The mountain no longer looks like Mount St. Helens. Its top is gone, replaced by a vast crater that smokes and glows in the sunlight. The once green valleys below are buried in gray. Ash stretches as far as the eye can see. Helicopters fly low, mapping the devastation. Where forests once stood, there are only stumps and shadows. Rivers cut new paths through walls of mud and fallen timber. Lakes have turned brown and lifeless. Even the sound of water feels heavy. Rescue operations shift into recovery. Teams search through ash and rubble for those who did not survive. They move slowly, carefully, marking locations with flags. The silence is unbearable. Every footprint leaves a ghostly trail in the dust. At the base camp, the survivors wait for news. They sit together, wrapped in blankets, staring at the horizon. Some ask about loved ones. Some do not have to ask. The rescuers' faces already tell them the truth. A mother from Toutle River holds a small photo in her hand. It is gray from ash, the edges curled from heat. She wipes it clean again and again, as if the act could bring back the person in it. Nearby, a young boy draws a volcano in the dirt with a stick. He makes it round and peaceful, the way it used to be. In towns across Washington, life slows to a hush. Schools stay closed. The streets are covered with a soft gray powder that never seems to end. People sweep their porches every morning, and by night it is covered again. The air smells faintly of sulfur and rain. Each breath reminds them of what happened. Scientists return to the mountain with new equipment. They wear masks and climb through the crater rim. The heat still rises from vents in the ground. They measure, record, and photograph, trying to understand how a mountain could vanish so completely. Every reading tells the same story. Nature's power is far beyond human control. Reporters write about courage and tragedy. The nation watches from afar. Donations pour in, but for those who lived here, words cannot fill the silence. Each day feels longer, slower, quieter. Grief hangs over the landscape like mist. In a nearby field, volunteers build temporary crosses for the dead. Names are carved into wood, some known, some still missing. Flowers wilt under the weight of ash. The wind blows softly, carrying the smell of pine and memory. People stand together without speaking. No one knows what to say. At night, the sky clears for the first time in weeks. Stars shine above the crater, bright and cold. The land glows faintly, as if reflecting the memory of fire. A ranger writes in his logbook, "The mountain is quiet tonight." But he does not mean peace. He means absence. The people who remain begin to rebuild. They dig through the ash for anything that survived, a photograph, a tool, a piece of home. They plant small gardens where soil still breathes. They speak softly, as if not to disturb the ghosts around them. Even the children play quietly now. In the months that follow, the land begins to heal in small ways. Shoots of green push through the gray soil. A bird returns to the silent forest and begins to sing. The sound feels fragile, but it is enough. It is the first note of life returning. Loss will never leave this place, but life, stubborn and slow, begins to move again. The mountain that destroyed so much still stands, scarred, hollow, changed, but alive.
Years pass, and the mountain grows quiet again. New grass rises through the ash. The crater gathers snow in winter, and wildflowers bloom along its rim in spring. Nature begins its slow work of healing. But not all wounds belong to the land. The people who lived through that morning carry memories that time cannot erase. Some tell their stories often, others never speak of it again. As the years go on, those voices fade. New generations drive past the mountain without knowing what happened there.
In a small museum near Tuttle, an old ranger keeps a box of photographs. He shows them to visitors who stop on their way to the observatory. Black and white images of trees blown flat, cars buried in ash, faces covered in soot. He points to one picture, a man standing on a ridge, camera in hand, as the sky turns dark. "That was Gary," he says softly. "He stayed to take one more photo." In another case sits a letter, yellowed with age. It is from a mother to her daughter, written the night before the eruption. She wrote about the smell of spring and the sound of frogs near the water. She promised they would go fishing next weekend. The letter was found miles from where she lived, carried by the wind, sealed in ash. Somewhere in Oregon, a retired pilot keeps a framed newspaper clipping. It shows his helicopter flying low through smoke, rescuing survivors. He says he can still hear the radio calls in his dreams, voices breaking, names shouted, silence after static. He has never returned to the mountain. He says once was enough. A teacher who lived through the ashfall still keeps a jar of it on her shelf. She brings it to class every year when her students study volcanoes. The children look at it with curiosity. To them, it is only dust. To her, it is memory, the sound of thunder in daylight, the fear, the awe, the quiet afterward. At Spirit Lake, the water has returned, calm and silver. New trees grow along the shore. Visitors walk the trails where cabins once stood. They take pictures, laugh, and talk about how beautiful it is. Few notice the small plaque near the edge of the forest. It bears only a name, Harry R. Truman, and the words, "He stayed with the mountain." Historians record the eruption as a scientific event, a study of force and geology. But behind every number is a life. Every measurement of ash, every note of temperature or pressure hides a story of someone who lived, someone who did not. Those stories risk being lost as the world moves forward. Yet sometimes, on quiet mornings, the mountain reminds people of what happened. A wisp of steam rises from the crater. A distant rumble rolls through the valleys. It is not danger, only memory, the earth remembering what it once unleashed. Documentaries and books keep the event alive for those who were not there. But for the survivors, it is not history, it is a moment that never ends. They remember the sound, the heat, the way daylight turned to night. They remember who was with them and who was not. In recent years, tourists climb the trails to look into the crater. They stand in silence, phones in hand, unsure what to say. The wind carries a low hum through the rocks. It sounds like a whisper, almost a voice. If you listen long enough, you might think the mountain is speaking back. It speaks for those who can no longer tell their stories, for the loggers, the campers, the scientists, and the man at the lake, for every life caught in that morning of ash and fire. It speaks quietly with the patience of time, and those who listen can still hear the echo of that day, not as tragedy, but as remembrance.
Decades have passed since that morning in May. The mountain stands open to the sky, its heart exposed. Where destruction once ruled, life has returned in quiet persistence. Wildflowers bloom in ash. Lupin, fireweed, and alder trees root in soil made from fire. The land remembers, but it also forgives. Every spring, visitors come to see the crater. They walk the trails, listening to the wind moving through the grass. They look out across the valley, where forests once stood and where new ones rise again. The silence feels sacred. It carries the weight of what was lost and the strength of what remains. Scientists continue to study the volcano, watching its slow recovery.
Tiny earthquakes still ripple beneath its surface, signs of life deep below. The earth is never truly still. It breathes, shifts, and grows, reminding humanity of its power and patience. At the Mount St. Helens Visitor Center, a film plays on repeat. Images of the eruption fill the screen, the blast, the smoke, the lightning, the aftermath. Children sit beside their parents, eyes wide. When the lights come back on, they whisper questions. Was anyone here when it happened? Did people survive? The answers are quiet, but they carry hope. The survivors who tell their stories now speak with calm reflection. Their fear has turned into wisdom. They talk about the strength they found in the worst hours and how beauty returned to a place that once seemed doomed. They remind others that survival is not only about living through a moment, it is about finding meaning after it. In the small towns that border the mountain, life feels normal again. Children play near rivers that once carried walls of mud. New trees shade the roads. Farmers plant in the same soil that once burned with ash. Each day is a quiet act of resilience. A memorial stands near Johnston Ridge, named for David Johnston, the young scientist who radioed the final words before the blast. "Vancouver, Vancouver, this is it." Visitors read the plaque and fall silent. Some leave flowers. Some just stand and look at the mountain, humbled by the scale of time. Farther down the valley, the spirit of Harry Truman still lingers in stories and songs. His name has become part of the legend, the man who refused to leave. Children hear his tale and imagine the stubborn old man with his cats defying the volcano he loved. In a way, he never left. His ashes are part of the land now, part of the story that continues to grow. On calm evenings, the light over the crater turns gold. Clouds drift across the rim like smoke from a memory. The wind carries the sound of birds, the rustle of grass, and sometimes a faint rumble from deep inside the earth. It is not a threat, only a reminder. The world is alive, and everything changes. Those who stand at the edge of the crater often feel something they cannot name. It is not fear, not sadness, but awe, the sense of being small in a vast, breathing world. The mountain that once destroyed has become a teacher. It speaks of power, loss, endurance, and renewal. And so, Mount St. Helens remains a monument not only to destruction, but to life itself. It shows how beauty can rise from ruin, how silence can follow thunder, and how memory can live beyond fire. The survivors grew older, the forest grew back, and the land kept breathing. In the end, the story of Mount St. Helens is not about a volcano. It is about people, about how they face what they cannot control, about how they rebuild when the world falls apart, about how they remember and how they endure. The mountain sleeps now, calm beneath the sun, but its spirit and the voices of those who lived its story will never fade.